Yeah, so first I want to say I am Canadian, I am Anglican, and I am an introvert. And just because I'm a priest does not make it any easier to talk about my faith. I like to show it, I don't like to talk about it. And I just think that this is, those things that we're not supposed to talk about at Thanksgiving dinner. It's bred into my bones as well. One of the things that you had to do as part of your discernment of your vocation to the priesthood, you had to talk endlessly about your faith and God's role in your life endlessly. And I can tell you, it was non-stop hell. Kind of like a dog going back to its own vomit. I hated it. Because actually I was going through a discernment to priesthood through the Church of England, the Diocese of Europe. And then when I left Turkey, I left that diocese, right? So then I had to start all over again. I just thought, oh no. And yet, over time, as I looked at my life, again and again and again, you actually saw more and more of God working in your life. And I would say actually, through this occasion again, I actually discovered new stuff, I rediscovered stuff of kind of how God was actually working in my life that I'd actually managed to forget or not remember as I went through all of those, jumping through those hoops. And so I think one moral from today is spend time going through your life, and you'll be surprised at what you'll see with God working in it. It's often and only in retrospect that you see these things, and it's really worth the time. So I thank Jordan for asking me this, because I actually remembered things, which is nice. So Augustine says, "Our hearts are restless, O Lord, until they rest in Thee." That's a pious way of putting it. This is how I would put it. Following, can you remember Eddie Murphy playing Buckwheat in Saturday Night Live? I was looking panub in Ottawa places. I looked for love, and I looked for rest everywhere. So as for me, I grew up in Oakville, just west of Toronto. Grew up a cradle Roman Catholic, the youngest of 5, so I'm the baby. Life is just grand for me. This is just how I view the world. And as I grew up, our family went to church less and less, until finally we became C&E Christians at Christmas and Easter. I was grade 4. I was moved from our Catholic school system into an Anglican private school. And there we actually had morning prayer every day, kind of 12 minutes in and out, kind of quick and dirty. And it was actually all boys until grade 10, and it was just wonderful, raucous singing. We just had a wonderful tradition of singing. We had a wonderful world-class choir. It wasn't very Christian, however, but I did learn a lot about the beauty of Anglican worship. Right, just to see kind of how God is kind of slowly doing His thing as I was doing something completely else. I was typical teenager. I think I suddenly have to turn this to far more PG, 13, because of some of the audience. I chased things and I partied, shall we say, and I played a lot of sports. I was very much into canoe tripping up in northern Ontario, winter camping, and all that stuff. And outdoors was my thing. And I've always very much felt the presence of God in nature. More about this in a second. I'm also some people have to believe it, some people will think, okay. I'm also a very sensitive fellow, or at least I was. And so I steal books of literature and poetry from my older brothers and sisters. One brother, one sister. The other two, I had one brother and one sister who did do the reading thing. And so the chasing, and it's all complex, the chasing of girls was not so much not only the effect of hormones coursing through my veins, it was also part of a spiritual longing in me. The same could be said about my other extracurricular activities. And so as I was preparing this, I found this wonderful quote by Camus, a French philosopher who was just completely nuts. But he said beautiful things sometimes. And so this is, when I read it, I just thought, oh, this is so perfect of like my teenage years. Beauty is unbearable, drives us to despair, offering us for a minute the glimpse of an eternity that we should like to stretch out over the whole of time. This really captures very much for where I was at in terms of my extracurricular activities. But I also had kind of an interest in things of the mind, in kind of what I took. I was taking kind of AP courses in high school in history and economics and philosophy, right? So I was weird. So I liked reading and things like that, but I also liked camping and doing serious outdoor stuff. And then one day I was skiing with a friend, and I heard about this great program at King's College, Halifax, which is where Jordan and I went to, and where the bishop went to, and actually Chris Dow didn't go to, but a lot of people that cycled through here went through there. And for 1 year, you just read everything. You basically had one course, and you just read everything. It was a lot of fun. But before I went there, I took a year off and to take this outdoor leadership course on Vancouver Island. And it was there that I became a pantheist, a total pantheist. I was a vegan like 20 years ago. Now vegan is like so cool. Like I was annoying, supremely annoying, and into all sorts of weird spirituality, which I will never tell you anything more about that than this. But weird stuff. And when I said that I felt the presence of God in nature, I really mean that literally. I hugged trees and felt God's presence in them. And yet, on the top of the second highest mountain on the island, Mount Myrna, as we summited, I sang by memory that great hymn that I learned at school, I Feel the Wings of God Today. And I cried, actually. So there was kind of things weaving in and out together. So when I moved back home, speaking of being an annoying vegan, sorry if there's any vegans here, I doubt there are, but I'm sorry. But I can say this because I was one. Like when I moved back home, I wouldn't sleep inside. I would actually sleep on the shores of Lake Ontario. How intolerable I must have been. But so then I went off to King's, and strange things happened. King's had, the King's Chapel rather, had a great choir. And so my love of music and choir from high school led me there, right? There's no way I would have ever have entered the chapel if there hadn't been this love of music and choir. It was also there that I met a young priest, a fellow by the name of Michael Hawkins. He was probably skinnier now than he was then, but still he was skinnier. And he preached regularly at King's. And unlike my high school, the King's Chapel had like full, real religion. It was wonderful. The worship was beautiful. The music we sang was beautiful. The preaching was thoughtful. It was soulful. The priests we had sherry with afterwards were very funny, very smart, and actually real human beings, which was a bit of a breakthrough that priests are actually humans. And despite all this, I thought the language we used of the Book of Common Prayer, which we're going to hear soon, totally nauseating, totally despicable. I just thought, you worms, what are you saying? What are you doing? Forgive me. The prayer of humble access was, as you might say, excessively humiliating. We do not presume, and confessing our own manifold sins and wickedness. I hated it. I hated it, and I just thought it totally demeaning. The problem was that as this was happening, right, so just all sorts of, the head and the heart and nature are always in this weird dance, and God is just kind of like a great chess master, kind of setting me up for something that he had in mind. So the problem is that in my studies, I was learning that religion in general, Christianity, were serious business, and that they were philosophically rigorous, but also answered the deeper spiritual questions that I had and that I felt. And so my vegan, pantheistic hippiedom was falling down. I was actually going to wear a wonderful shirt I got at the Lollapalooza concert in like '92. It's a great shirt. It's an embroidered, not embroidered, but like stitched Grateful Dead t-shirt. And underneath it said what a long strange trip it's been. But I'm painting my house and I can't find anything. And so in my second year of my university, I became a Christian. I was confirmed and accepted into the Anglican Church. Yeah, so like the walk, there was a lot of my walk, I had no idea what I was doing, that God was actually there. But there's no way this could have happened without all of these things happening unbeknownst to me. It's really like, please do this. Sit down with a pen and paper and just go through your life. Like, begin on your mom's knees and kind of as much as you can remember to go for there. You'll see weird stuff. So, what appealed to me, I don't think I've ever actually, I think this was kind of new, or I'm newly remembering. With Jesus, there is radical equality. Radical equality. No matter how smart or educated we are, or not, no matter how rich or poor, no matter how pretty or ugly, because of Jesus, we are worthy. We have this infinite worth. And so to kind of bring this together, I have basically one line from scriptures and one example. And I think what's common to both is that both cut through our BS, our pretensions. There's just no room for them. There's just no room for them. And that's shocking, but comforting, and actually gave my soul rest. So it's actually handy enough that it comes from the first epistle to John, which is going to be the epistle this Sunday. So you'll get to do some prep for this Sunday's reading. And he says it a few different ways in the epistle, but it's that we were loved first. We were loved first, and so not that we loved him, but that he loved us first. And I think certainly I, spent my life looking for love. And there is joy to be found in finding someone who turns and loves you, right? We know this. But we also know that our entire self-worth can be wrapped up in that, in often very toxic ways. But here, for me, while I was off being a selfish idiot, no, God already loved me. When I wasn't looking, God loved me. So the point is not so much me looking, and then someone else learning, and then learning about me and loving me, which I did, and it can be very tiring. No. That divine love was there from the beginning, seeking me, even when I was unlovable. If this applied to me, this being infinitely lovable when I wasn't, then that applied to everyone, to anyone. I mean, it was a wonderful time. I was working in a soup kitchen in Halifax at St. George's. Now there you are. There was a piano in the hall there, there used to be. And a homeless guy went up and he just started playing Amazing Grace. And I just started to cry, and I just kind of had to throw the ladle down and kind of zip out to into the kitchen, kind of look up at the ceiling. Yeah, I find that just so attractive. Because the world doesn't care about homeless people, right? No, just go to college. You'll get a job in the IT sector, right? No, they won't. We know it. They know it. The guys and the gals in the jail and the pen. No, they're not. They have that black mark on them, right? They know it. And so the world judges them. But as a Christian, no. It's impossible, right? It cuts through our pretensions. So that's what I mean by this idea of radical unity. Handily, it also made those who puffed up their chests with their money, looks, education, status, look like buffoons. I just felt and I knew the truth and the implications of this line. Not that we love God, but that He loved us first. So the second image comes from a book, and it was written by an English atheist reporter who turned Christian. He was a bit of a grumpy journalist, so I liked him. His name was Malcolm Muggeridge. I don't know if you've heard of him. And he wrote a wonderful book. He wrote a few books, but a wonderful book called Something Beautiful for God. And it was a book about Mother Teresa with some interviews. He went to Calcutta and spent some time with her. I totally forgot about this book. And so, to kind of come back to it, like, oh my gosh, this is a key moment in the kind of the articulation of my faith. As we'll see. So there are two stories that really jump out for me from this book. The first day that Mother Teresa, right, so the Sisters of Charity didn't exist yet, right? She's just off the plane, and the Pope gave her permission to go there and start this up. The first day that she was in Calcutta, she came across an unwanted woman on the streets. And to quote Mother Teresa, her body was half eaten by rats and ants. So Mother Teresa cared for her, loved her, showed that she was loved, as the woman soon inevitably died. But that woman who died, through the work of the Sisters of Charity, through Mother Teresa, she knew the love of Jesus. Right? There's no BS there, right? There's no excuses. Just, she was loved. And I think that's our call. But that's just what I found, right, this doesn't make any sense. We're all rational, logical, and be like, well, we should be like. Mother Teresa's like, no, we have to care for them. Later, and I love this part. I just love this part. Mother Teresa would be chided by friends. When the Sisters of Charity got big and they got all this money and all this status and all this kind of leverage. And they said to her, Mother Teresa, wouldn't it be better to form a political action group to change policies? And that way, you would help the lives of more people. And she said, well, yes, that is true. But people are dying on the streets today. This is whom I serve. Right? Just, how can you respond to that? With words. You just do. You just go. And I was always reminded of that Holy Week hymn. I love this hymn. Love to the loveless shown, that they might lovely be. In both these stories, and with the observation from John about God loving us first, I felt touched by God. I felt convicted that I sought after stupid things, or at least in a stupid way. I felt that I could sense who God was really. Right? God is not a clockmaker, and we follow the Ten Commandments like kind of robots, right? There's something ucky, gucky, messy, immediate, the wounds, like you go, you do, you just stop making excuses, you go and you do. And that this was a code, as it were, to read the world and to live in the world. The poor shall inherit the earth. So back to looking panab, looking for love. In meeting Jesus, for me, there was a... it's either hell or it's getting hot here. Yeah, seriously. Well, that's God convicting you. In meeting Jesus, there was a great inversion for me. Right? It was no longer me looking for love, but that love itself found me, and in that perfect love, my searching in one sense ceased. There certainly was no looking for validation or worth in things. I was loved. Of course, life goes on and you make mistakes along the way. There's 20 years or so between then and now, and I won't bore you with those details. But that's it. But there's a poem that I first heard at King's that was put to music that touched my heart then, and it did so unknowingly, right? We always understand later. It's like someone tells you what was already going on in your soul, and you only thought that it was you. But there it is, beautifully put in English and beautifully put to music. And you just think, yeah, this is true. And so my life since then has really been to try to carry this poem in my heart and know its truth more and more deeply. It's by George Herbert, a 17th century English poet, priest too. I had a feeling the pattern of our lives was somewhat similar. And it's a song, it's a poem called Love, bracket 3. So the third poem about love. And it's a dialogue between his soul and love, God. Love bade me welcome, yet my soul drew back, guilty of dust and sin. But quick-eyed love, observing me grow slack from my first entrance in, drew nearer to me, sweetly questioning if I lacked anything. I guessed I answered, worthy to be here. Love said, you shall be he. I, the unkind, ungrateful? Ah, my dear, I cannot look on thee. This is just... Love took my hand, and smiling did reply, who made the eyes but I? Truth, Lord, but I have marred them. Let my shame go where it doth deserve. And know you not, says love, who bore the blame? My dear, then I will serve. You must sit down, says love, and taste my meat. So I did sit and eat. Love bade me welcome, and my soul drew back. I just felt when I heard that sung so beautifully from friend of mine, Andy, I just felt that this was exactly what had been going on my whole life. And just to have it said so clearly, who made the eyes but I, like Jesus understands, who made the eyes but I, I'm not worthy. And Jesus, approaching, takes your hand and says, I know. And my faith is still a struggle. I don't struggle with faith. I struggle with God shaping me. I don't like to be shaped. This letting go, I don't think that anything in our society teaches us to let go. We have to control things. And certainly the gift of being a priest is, and especially in ministry, like we have zero control over you guys. It's just like zero. But you get to see the Holy Spirit work through everyone, and then through you, certainly speaking of me, quite in spite of myself. And so just to learn to sit down with God and to begin to understand His love for us. That's the struggle, because our soul draws back, and it's this. At the end of the day, your walk, probably for me, there has to be that romance. There has to be that romance between you and God, your soul and God.